Hey everyone, this is Dan with Performance Motorworks, and I'm out in the workshop today. I've got this 2012 Volkswagen. A little while back we did a similar video looking at a BMW, and I was talking to you guys about what to look for when purchasing a pre-owned vehicle. Everybody seemed to love that, so I thought what a great opportunity for me to get back out here in the workshop and do another video. Now I will say I am the owner here, and I have 5 just great technicians, highly trained, who get to come out here and play cars all day. And I don't get to do it as much as I used to, so I'm super excited to be out here and do this with you guys. So why don't we start up at the front under the hood, and we'll go from there. All right, now like I said, I am the owner here, but I also am a master technician, and I spent over 30 years of my life working on nothing but European cars. And so like I said, it sure is just fun to come out here and get a look at these things and see what we have going on. So one of the benefits to taking your car to a European specialist is we really know the cars. Every car seems to have, for whatever reason, their own little idiosyncrasies and their own little problems, and knowing the Volkswagens and having somebody trained in Volkswagen really is going to help you to get a good quality inspection on the car. So why don't we just get started? So this is a 2-liter engine. It's a very common engine on the Volkswagen Audi product. We work on a lot of these, so we're very familiar with them. So I've got my flashlight. I'm just going to kind of start peeking around. Now I've got a inspection. It's in a digital format that I'll be working through. I'm not going to do that on camera because it would just be too tedious. So we're just going to kind of go casual, and I'll just start pointing some things out to you. So right off the bat, for starters, one of the common things on this 2-liter engine is they have been known to have some oil leaks, unfortunately. And this cam cover on this one, if you kind of look at where I'm shining my flashlight and pointing, it's starting to leak some oil. So that's unfortunate. These cam covers, they do take a little bit of labor to get apart, to get in there and get that resealed. And so it's something that we're going to let this client know about, and we'll let them know what it's going to cost to get it addressed. In addition to that, this upper timing cover is also a common leak area. It may be leaking as well. We'll get a better look at that from the bottom. Either way, we would need to get that opened up to do the repair anyway, so we're probably gonna reseal that at the same time. So what we do typically, again, we're going through the checklist and we're doing some specific checks, but I'm right now just kind of using my knowledge and experience to kind of look around and see if there's anything common that I see. One thing that I do notice kind of right off the bat here is that the coolant level is low. This is the minimum line, so I should be able to see a shadow where the coolant is here, and I'm not seeing it. It looks like it's a little bit low. So that's kind of a clue that we may have a little leak here. So when we get the car up on the lift, we'll take a closer look at that. Working my way over here, again, I'm just kind of looking in all the little nooks and crannies, trying to see what I see. One thing that I do see here, if you kind of look closely here and here and here, those are rodent prints. So that means that there has been a mouse or something, a rat in this vehicle. They like to come in here in the winter time because the engine gets warm, and they come in here to get warm. But the bad thing is sometimes they'll start chewing on wiring and things. And so in this case, I'm not really seeing any ill effects. But again, it's something that I would add to my digital report, take some pictures, and let the client know that it does look like there is some rodent tracks in here. On this particular vehicle, the battery is under the hood. That's not the case on a lot of them. A lot of times the battery will be either under the seat or in the trunk area, a little bit harder to get to. But this is nice. I can get a good look at it. Looking at the date code on the battery on the side here, it's not too old. It looks like it was replaced in 9 of 2024, and we're in January of 2025 as we're shooting this video. Now, even though it looks good visually and it looks to be pretty new, I'm still gonna put a tester on it before I finish the inspection and run a test on it and make sure that it's good. But again, we're looking for clues. I should mention too that we love our tech here, so we have these cool battery powered lights. I probably should have turned that on at the beginning, but I've got my flashlight as well, but that might help you to get a little bit better picture with the camera there as well. So I think that's pretty much everything for up top, and so why don't we lift the vehicle up, and then let's carry on from there. Okay, so here we are underneath the vehicle. Now we've got it up on the lift, and for the sake of the video, we've removed the lower plastic panel because normally you wouldn't be able to see everything that we're looking at right now. And I've got my flashlight. I'm gonna do a little bit of peeking around. Now we do have a pretty detailed checklist that we go through, but for the sake of the video, I'm just gonna take you from front to back of the car and kind of show you what we're looking for. Now, when we were up there, we got a clue by looking at the coolant level and noticing that it was low. And lo and behold, here we are, and we can see some really bright orange drips, you know, here, and you can even see where the wind has kind of blown it back all the way there. So this is what we would call a pretty significant coolant leak. Now, this is where, you know, working on only a few brands, you know, trusted German brands like Volkswagen, we know the cars pretty well, so I can kind of tell you just by where it's at that we probably most likely have a leaking water pump here. Now, what we would do in this scenario is we would fill up the cooling system and we would put it under pressure and we would get a closer look. But up here in the front of the car is where the water pump is located, and it is kind of a common trouble area on these vehicles. So while we're here in this area, we looked at the belt a little bit, the serpentine belt from the top, but we can really get a good view of it here with the flashlight, and we can once again see that there's no surface cracking. The belt looks and feels permeable. It's looking pretty good. It doesn't look like it has a lot of wear and tear there. Mixed in with this coolant is some oil. We kind of identified that oil leak up at the top from the cam cover, but another common leak area is actually the upper timing cover. Now we probably won't be able to get that on the camera, but if I look up here with my flashlight, you know, sure enough, it is leaking a little bit as well. Not major, but there's a little bit of leak from that as well. So we should be able to get a picture of that and get that attached to our digital work order. And what we're gonna do in this case is we're gonna send the client a complete digital report of everything that we see on the car. So just working our way around, let's get a look at the tires. So looking at these tires, what we're looking at, the thickness of the tread. We're also looking at the wear pattern all the way from left to right here, because that's going to give us an idea of if the car is well aligned and if there's any worn suspension components. Now at face value, these tires look really good. The tread is really deep, it's looking good. But there's a couple things that I am noticing. One of them is that it does look like it has had a repair done on it somewhere in the life. It doesn't look bad. It's not necessarily a bad thing, but it is noteworthy, and it's something that we would take a picture of and let our client know. Now, the other thing that makes me a little bit not so happy is these age cracks in the rubber. That tells me that this tire may be getting old and it may be starting to fatigue the rubber itself. Now, you may or may not know this, but every tire manufactured in the United States, in addition to a DOT number, Department of Transportation, it also has a date code, which tells you when this tire was manufactured. And so this number 4519 right here, that tells me that this tire was manufactured in the 45th week of 2019. Now, we're in January of 2025 now, and so that makes this tire going on 6 years old. And the life of a tire is anywhere between 4 and 6 years. And so the date code combined with those age cracks, I would recommend replacing this tire for sure. We're going to look at the rest of them as well as part of the process. Now, while I'm looking right here, I can get a look at the braking system. Ultimately, we'll pull the tires off and wheels, and we'll get a closer look. But looking at the brake pads here, just kind of at a visual glance, I can see that there's a lot of thickness on the pads. They look like they're fairly new, but looking at these rotors here, the wear pattern on the rotors, they're looking kind of blue. And you may not see it in the camera, but there's a pretty big lip here. If I take my finger and I run it across, it gets caught up on this lip. So that tells me that these rotors, somebody may have put some newer pads on some rotors that may be below the minimum safety spec now. So we don't know that for a fact just yet, but we're gonna get a closer look as part of our inspection process, and we'll take some specs with the micrometer, and we'll know for sure. So swinging back around, one thing I forgot to mention over here, these are our CV boots. Now, you guys may have probably heard that terminology, CV boot. It stands for constant velocity boot. This is what one looks like. Now, this is a common wear item on a lot of cars, and the reason why is every time that you're turning your steering wheel left or right, this accordion style boot is moving like that. What happens is it tends to get cracked in the seams. Now, this boot here is in perfect shape. It looks really good. Normally, it's really obvious if they're starting to tear because is you'll get grease coming out of there, and because they're turning and rotating constantly, that grease is going to get thrown everywhere. It's going to be really obvious. So this one looks really good, but it's something that we always look at. Now, if all that grease were to leak out, then it becomes a more expensive repair where you'd have to replace this whole axle, and that goes all the way from here all the way into here. And so that's why we want to check the boots really closely, and if there's any cracking, then we want to get them replaced so we don't have to replace the axle. Just moving over to the other side, this boot, same case, looking really good, no cracks, not even any surface cracking or anything like that, so I like that. And then while we're here up front, the other thing that we'll look at is our control arms. This is our front suspension. We have ball joints in here, we have tie rod ends here. These are all the wear items in the front suspension and steering that can sometimes have some problems. So just like the rubber boots on the CV axles there, these have rubber boots as well. So we're looking for any cracking, any leaking grease there. We typically will grab things, make sure things feel tight, but then we'll also put a tool on there as well and make sure that everything's in good shape. So far everything's looking good here. But again, knowing the Volkswagen vehicles, one thing that I know is really common is these bushings here if we wrap around. So we have these large control arm bushings, and they take a lot of the forces of turning and cornering. And sure enough, these bushings here are really starting to tear. And so I don't know if you can see that there with the camera, but we got some really large tears there. These bushings definitely require replacement. And what can happen if you don't replace them, your suspension and your steering is going to feel really loose. And if you were to have to, say try to avoid an accident, swerve really quickly, avoid a pothole, something like that, your car's not going to respond the way that it used to. And then the other negative effect is it can start to wear the tires out prematurely. So this is something that we're going to want to get addressed. So that brings me to the exhaust system. Here we have our exhaust system. What we're looking for on that, we want to make sure there's no leaks. We want to make sure there's no excessive rust. We'll even kind of tap it a little bit, make sure nothing's rattling, nothing's coming apart, and we'll kind of look at it all the way from where it joins the engine there, all the way to the back. And then again, as we kind of work from front to back, so we're kind of looking at everything. Again, no torn panels, nothing really obvious here. Not too much to look at in this area. This is our fuel tank, so we can look here for any kind of any fuel leaks or anything like that. Funny enough, this is not fuel, this is coolant here, and that's probably getting blown from the wind all the way from the front of the car to the back of the car. So that coolant, when it starts to leak, it's really thin, and it really just kind of gets everywhere. So we'll continue our journey back here, just looking over every piece of the exhaust, again looking for leaks, checking the rubber mounts and hardware, making sure that they're looking good, all the way back here to the rear muffler. This exhaust appears to be in really good order. Now these German cars use really high quality materials, and so the exhausts tend to hold up pretty well. As we go through the back here, again, we're going to check all 4 tires. We're going to do it in a much more detailed process, but just out of curiosity, if we check the date code on this tire, this one's even older. This one's the 23rd week of 2018. So I have a feeling all 4 of these tires are probably going to need to be replaced. And then once again, we can take a look at those brake pads and rotors. Again, we will be pulling the wheels off, but we can get a quick look because these wheels are open, and we can kind of get just a rough idea. These brake pads are not new, but they're not worn out. But again, the rotors kind of have a rough look to them. So we'll want to get a micrometer on those and check those out as well. All right, so just like we had suspension and bushings and things up front, we have similar in the back here. So we have these control arms here. We have springs, which all of these appear to be in good order, but I just caught with my flashlight, this is the rear shock. And I don't know if you can see this, but it's starting to get coated in kind of an oily substance. So these are an oil-filled shock, and these ones are starting to rupture and leak. And so that's something we'll definitely make a note of. This shock has got enough oil coming out of it that it looks like it's probably due for replacement. And we would do those as a pair because we want to make sure that the suspension geometry stays the same from side to side. So while we're back here, also made a note, it's got a little trailer hitch on there, and that's fine. But you know, it's something you got to consider if a car does have the trailer hitch. You know, they may have been towing some things behind it, so there may be more wear and tear on the vehicle. In this case, this is a small trailer hitch. It looks like it was used to tow a bike or something small, so not a big concern. And then again, just a really detailed inspection of the frame rails, all the suspension in here, brake lines here, and again, we're just looking for anything that stands out, and everything's looking pretty good other than the things I already kind of notated. This shock is not leaking oil, you'll notice, but once again, we're going to recommend doing them as a pair to keep that suspension geometry the same. And so what we'll do, we'll go back to our checklist off camera. We'll make sure we go through the entire checklist so that we're not missing anything. But this is just a quick example of a front to back inspection and some of the things that we look for here at our shop during the pre-purchase inspection. Okay, so as I was mentioning, everything that we do here is going to be digital, and so I thought I would break out the iPad and show you how I'm going to put some notes in on this vehicle and attach photos and video if needed, so that I can send this report over to our client and let them know the overall condition of this Volkswagen. So I've got my iPad here. Also, while I was off camera, I went ahead and ran a full diagnostic test on the vehicle as well, so we'll be going over that in addition to how we fill out the inspection. So looking at this, you can kind of see some of the details of the inspection if you're able to zoom in with the camera there, and some of the things that we were looking at as we were talking. So as I mentioned, those bushings in the back, those were pretty cracked up and pretty broken. So I'm going to go here and I can just navigate with my finger, and if I tick that box, I've got the option of marking it green, yellow, or red. In this case, it was pretty bad, so I'm going to go ahead and mark it red, and so that'll populate there. Now, if I want to, what I can do, and I will, is go ahead and type in some notes. And so this is where I would type in notes, basically saying the details of what I found, that those bushings were severely cracked, and that I recommend replacement. And then if I click on this click to upload button, then I can attach any photos that I've taken, which we always do, and even video if it's appropriate. And then from there, after I fill out this inspection, it's going to go up to my service advisor up front. He's going to gather estimates for any work that we might recommend, and we'll send that all over in a digital format to the customer so that they can easily view it from either their phone or their laptop. The nice thing about it is it's all web driven. It's just a web page, so we're going to send them a link and they can view it from whatever device they'd like. The other thing that's nice is I've run this full diagnostic here, and I have the ability here to export this to a report as well, and I can attach it there digitally and send that out as well. Now, a lot of people will take their car to maybe a local auto parts store, and they'll use what we call an OBD scanner, and it will scan the engine only for codes. One of the nice things about going to a specialist is we have software that will pull all of the computers in the car. And as you can see, this car here has multiple computers, as you can see me scrolling through. So not only are we looking at the engine, but we're running a diagnostic on the airbag, on the instrument cluster, on the door electronics, the parking brake, all kinds of stuff in addition to the engine. Now this car does have some error codes in there, and so we will kind of go through and sift through that data, and sometimes they can just be old sporadic codes, or sometimes they're relevant and they need to be addressed. But we'll attach this to the work order, and then we'll advise our client on what the next course of action would be. All right, so we just finished looking at this 2012 Volkswagen, and as you saw, we did find some items that do need some attention. So luckily, this client was able to bring the car in and get the inspection done and make a more well-informed buying decision. Now, the takeaway from this, hopefully, is that you kind of see the value in having a shop do a pre-purchase inspection, and even more value in having a German car specialty shop do it. So wherever you're located, hopefully hopefully in the Rocklin area, you can have us do it here. In this area, I will tell you it's about $300 to do one of these inspections, but definitely well worth the investment to know what you're buying. If you have a shop in another area, do your best to find a German car specialist that really knows the vehicles. And if you don't have a shop in your area that you're working with, then maybe I gave you some tips of some things that you can look for yourself. So hopefully you got something out of this. Now, if you are in the Rocklin area and you're looking at buying a pre-purchased or used BMW, Volkswagen, Mercedes, German car, give us a call, 916-624-9656, or visit us on the web at pmwonline.com. Thanks so much for visiting.